So K-State's been getting torched by the national media for trying to get out of Jerome Tang's $18.7 million buyout. But guess what? Legal experts think K-State actually has a solid case here. Now, I'll tell you what a solid case means and explain why. Plus, I think a lot of this outrage is misplaced, and I'm going to explain that as well. So the common thread here is that all the outrage, everything that you're seeing, whether it's Fran Fraschilla, whether you're watching Seth Greenberg and his tirade, I mean, Stephen A. Smith weighed in on this. It's like everybody had an opinion this week about K-State and Jerome Tang. A lot of this seems to be based around the idea that K-State is firing Jerome Tang just for one press conference, for cause, firing him for cause because of one press conference. And that is, I think, the falsehood here. That is, I think, the thing that needs to be addressed first and foremost. Okay. Now, the legal experts that we're going to get to don't even really care so much about that. They think based on even the one press conference and the embarrassment clause in his contract alone, there is a case. So we will get to that. But I think people are reading too much into the fact that, and this is on K-State for only putting this out there publicly. They have not publicly said there's anything beyond this, but Gene Taylor's quote about the press conference was, quote, there's language in his contract about certain things that could potentially bring embarrassment. Basically, his comments about the student athletes and the negative reaction to those comments from sources nationally and locally is where it kind of felt like I needed to make the decision. Okay. So Gene Taylor, K-State's AD, has publicly said basically, hey, that's really it. Okay. That's the deal. I'm here to tell you, though, there's much more to it than that, my friends. And you don't need to be some super crazy secret insider. Just look through the past of what has happened here throughout this whole thing, okay? Jerome Tang publicly accused TJ Otzelberger of spying on his huddle once upon a time. That was well publicized, okay? It was a huge embarrassment. And a lot of the same people that are now saying, oh, you got to just pay Jerome his money, stop doing this, it's embarrassing, K-State, are the same ones that were parading around saying it was embarrassing that Jerome Tang accused TJ Otzelberger of filming his huddle. And there is that embarrassment language in the contract. Okay, publicly accused TJ Otzelberger of spying on the huddle. Turn the entire fan base and media against the university president because Naquan Tomlin got kicked out of school because of a bar fight and a less publicized Title IX issue that never really fully got reported, and that was the murky part of all of that going on. Some he said, she said behind the scenes there. One of Jerome Tang's assistants got into a screaming match with Kansas assistant Doc Sadler after a K-State win over KU in Bramlage Coliseum. There was a handshake line dust-up with Bill Self after a KU K-State game. Last year, you had a chore leaving in the middle of the season after being paid seven figures. The Doug McDaniel back and forth between being benched and starting last year. Mysterious absences for like four players on the roster this year that were never totally quite explained. This is just the tip of the iceberg, guys, because this is only what you can see. Good general rule of thumb, like when this much is going on and like that's the visible part, you have to imagine it like an iceberg. That's the part that's sticking up out of the water that's actually bubbling above the surface. Think of what is going on underneath, like these massive icebergs that are underneath the water. Okay, there's been a lot of drama. I think Jerome Tang has been difficult to deal with behind the scenes. I'm just saying, if you've been following this, it's not hard to believe that K-State would have a case with some other things. Okay. Again, according to the legal experts, they don't even really need that, but I am quite confident that there are other things there. I mean, hell, this week, if you're paying attention on Twitter before it got deleted, good job, Tom Mars. There was audio released of Coleman Hawkins, who played for K-State last year, telling the story of Jerome Tang not being able to get the video equipment to work to show film of Houston last year and saying, well, it's a sign from God. We're not going to watch film. Let's just go out there and play. And they got bombed by 30 at home. It was Coleman Hawkins talking about this. I don't know if the audio is still out there or not. It certainly was for a minute. There's a lot going on here, guys. That's the point. Okay. But even if it were just about the presser, I'm going to get to the insight here from The Athletic. Now, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video. I would greatly appreciate it if you did that. This is where the Big 12 just means more on the Open for Business Big 12 podcast. Okay. Couple of things to address. I've seen a lot of pushback of, hey, if he were 11-1 instead of 1-11 in the Big 12, he wouldn't be getting fired. Well, of course. High achievers in any workplace get away with a lot more. Okay. That's a pretty solid fact of life. There's also the pushback I've seen. If you didn't fire him for the stuff when it happened then it doesn't hold any weight now. Have you heard of people being fired for a pattern of behavior? And there's typically like a final straw. I don't know that holds a ton of water either. But even if it is just the embarrassing comments, quote unquote, from the press conference, remember this clause in Jerome Tang's contract. Coach shall not engage in any behavior, actions, or activities that subject coach, K-State athletics, or the university to public disrepute, embarrassment, ridicule, or scandal. Now, The Athletic also says who decides that is not clear in that specific clause, but in the section of Tang's contract about firing for cause, there is language that states, quote, objectionable behavior is determined, quote, in the sole reasonable judgment of the athletics director. That sets the table for what these legal experts say, okay? 3 were mentioned here in this story from The Athletic, a couple of them who were quoted. Gene Marsh, a former chair of the Division I Committee on Infractions, who also worked in private practice and is now a professor emeritus at Alabama, and Dallas-based lawyer Michael Lyons, okay? Here is what they say. Whether that judgment, okay, so the judgment in the clause that I just talked to you about, the embarrassment clause, whether that judgment is reasonable may be up to a judge or court, but 2 lawyers noted it might give K-State a leg to stand on in any future legal action. Quote, that's how it plays out. It's what is your appetite for risk on both sides? The AD knows they have risk. Tang knows he's got risk. There will be some meeting in the middle. Okay, that's the quote from one legal expert. There will be some meeting in the middle. And that has been what I've tried to just shout from the rooftops this entire time. It's going to be settled. There will be a settlement here. I would virtually guarantee that there's going to be a settlement. How much K-State knocks off this, I do not know. But the outrage has died down after a couple of days, predictably. We're on to the next thing, which seems to be Darren Peterson. More on that in a moment. Now you wait and see what happens. There is risk on both sides. Nobody wants this going to, trust me, Jerome Tang does not want this going to Discovery. Okay. Here's a little section from The Athletic piece of this with the legal expertise that starts by talking about one of the quotes that Tang had from said press conference after the Cincinnati game. And this is what the legal experts think was the most damning piece of it. Quote, there will be very few of them in these uniforms next year, Tang said. So he's talking about the players saying like, hey, these guys are going to be gone next year. Here is what one of those lawyers said. Quote, that bangs the gong. That's when university lawyers are going, wait a minute. You don't speak for the school and its contractual relationship with players. People hearing that will be alarmed and be thinking you're trying to run somebody off and all that stuff. He definitely put some bullets in the gun of the school when he made a statement like that. Okay, again, not me. Somebody who's worked in law their entire life. The story goes on to say K-State's legal route might be intellectually dishonest, but it's also likely to save the athletic department at least some portion of Tang's $18.7 million buyout in a future settlement. So that's fine. If you want to say, hey, it is intellectually dishonest, that's fine. Many schools have tried to do this too. Most recently, LSU with Brian Kelly's contract in football, and it did not work out for them. Just in full disclosure to point that out. It did work out for Texas Tech with Mark Adams. It did work out for St. John's with Mike Anderson back in 2023 before they hired Rick Pitino. K-State is not the first, will not be the last. Call it intellectually dishonest if you want. That's fine. All of this is a little, yeah, man, it's all pretty murky. It's all pretty murky. And this is the world of contracts and law and massive buyouts and high stakes for these schools that need money more than ever right now. I'm not saying you have to like it or think it's great or the most honorable thing in the world, but my point this whole time has been K-State's not totally stupid for doing this. And I think they will save some money from doing this. And now thank you to The Athletic, to speaking to people with legal expertise on this. You have someone coming out there and saying, yeah, actually, I mean, it looks like they do have a bit of a point here in that it will likely push things back toward the middle. It's not just the rage fest and, the former coaches parading out there, which I get it. I understand everyone's motivations. I understand why the coaches have a pretty vested interest in coming out and trying to support Tang to make sure that this happens, that he gets the full buyout, because they don't want a precedent being set that schools are going to be able to just do this every single time that there's a monster buyout. Okay, look, if you want to know who K-State is going to hire post Jerome Tang, click here.